It's time for the Unnamed SWTOR Podcast, a podcast so good it doesn't need a name. So without any further ado, here's your host, JD. Take it away, Johnny.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to episode 29 of the Unnamed SWTOR Podcast. I'm your host, JD, aka Gaddick Teague, and in today's episode we have a jam-packed show. That's right, patch 2.6 is on the PTS, and there's plenty to talk about. On top of that, I'm going to bust out my crystal ball and make predictions for SWTOR in 2014, because that seems to be a popular thing to do these days. All this an idea fresh off my personal wall of crazy, so let's force leap right in.
Red 2, I've got a topic coming in hot, requesting clearance to engage.
Lock S foils in attack positions. You are cleared to discuss.
So if you haven't heard, patch 2.6 has been released in the public test server for players to jump in and try out some of the new content that'll be coming targeted early February as far as we know. A lot of stuff in this patch notes, not super major stuff I wouldn't say. I wouldn't say that this patch is going to be a blow your socks off, tons of content, get players back into the game kind of patch, but I think this is a nice, sizable patch with some good stuff in it. There is a definite lack of traditional PvE or PvP, player versus player, player versus environment. I said last week that I'm going to try and start saying that so I don't confuse myself or confuse you. So there's no traditional game modes like operations or ranked PvP maps or Warzone maps, nothing like that. But it does have stuff that, if you're a player, I think you'll like. So we have the addition of a new game mode for Galactic Starfighter. Team Deathmatch has been added. Now, this is not going to add any new maps, but I have been asking for new stuff to be added to Galactic Starfighter, because already it's starting to get a little stale. I still love it, but it's definitely a little stale, and variety is the spice of life. So I'm glad they're adding at least another game mode, and hopefully we'll see another map coming soon. And I'm sure we will. It sounds like they're very invested in Galactic Starfighter as a concept and as a game mode. So I expect a lot of stuff like this going forward. I do wish that they would have added, or I do hope that they will add something really cool to Galactic Starfighter. Something more than just a traditional team deathmatch or domination style. Something different from something that you couldn't get in other games. Something like an assault on a Death Star or a Starfighter or a Star Destroyer. Something like that would be cool and really feel Star Warsy, where a team deathmatch is a little bit, you blow up and you respawn, and that doesn't feel Star Wars. Like some like assault map would be awesome, I think. So I'd really hope that they add new maps and new modes going forward. We also have the addition of the Bomber, which is a support style ship. It does lots of cool stuff. They can drop mines, they can drop healing bots, they can even drop beacons where you can warp players in. The problem I see with beacons on the Bomber is the fact that a lot of players don't even know that you can respawn at different spots during a Galactic Starfighter match. And the addition of the hyperspace beacons will hopefully make more players aware of it, but let's be honest, players are not going to be aware of it. Players are not going to be using these as much as they should. And maybe for a coordinated team, these will really help you out. But I think for the average Joe, just random queuing as a Bomber, I'm thinking the hyperspace beacon is going to be left on the sideline for something more interesting and cooler. So that's as far as we go with the Galactic Starfighter changes. Like I said, I really hope that they add something crazier and further along, but I'm glad they added something instead of waiting that entire time. Waiting a long time for something crazy is kind of like what we did with Galactic Starfighter to begin with. We waited 2 years for them to instate this awesome game mode. And yes, it's awesome and it's amazing and I love it. But I wish they had dropped something smaller in more of a smaller time frame so that you could see kind of where we're going and have more to play with. And that's kind of what I think Team Deathmatch is. It's something to tide us over so that they do have a little bit longer to work on something crazier. And maybe they're even working on PvE. Who knows? The player versus environment Starfighter. I just really don't see much on either side talking about it anymore. So I don't know if that means that they've just weathered the storm and aren't going to deal with it anymore, or if they're maybe taken some cues from people, and maybe they're actually working on it now. We'll see. I honestly, I've said this before, I don't see a need for PvE space unless they're going to make it like operations bosses or flashpoints, things like that. But just going up against bots would be kind of stupid, and especially if it's by yourself. You're essentially doing a free flight version of the original space game, the Star Fox version. If they just went from a Star Fox version to a off-rails version of that same gameplay, that would be boring to me. So I really hope they don't go with that method if they are doing PvE. If they're doing PvE, make it MMO PvE, player versus environment. You're fighting against like a big old raid boss with 8 of your friends or 4 of your friends, and I think that would be the best implementation of PvE. A smaller feature on the Galactic Starfighter, and I made a video about this, highlighting the battle record, which is a pretty cool little feature that they've added in. You may have noticed that in the top right corner of live, I think it went live, or it may have been in the beta, I can't remember. But in the top right corner, there is a button that you can click, and it says Battle Log coming soon. Well, that's been implemented in the PTS. And what it does is just breaks down your stats in Galactic Starfighter throughout all of your games you've played, and you can break it down by ship. You can see the number of kills you have, the amount of damage you've done in your gunship. Lots of cool stuff can be accessed through this little hub area. And it also adds the ability to hyperlink any of these stats. So if you want to compare your EP with someone, you know, I have this many kills or this many wins in Galactic Starfighter, then you can just hyperlink it right into chat, and it'll be right there for players to see. I mean, I'm sure it'll lead to some obvious spam and things like that, but what doesn't lead to spam like that? I personally have not been able to get into any Galactic Starfighter yet. I've been trying to do a video on it for a while. I really want to get into the bomber and try it out, show it to you guys, so hopefully that'll be up this week. I'm going to try again later today, but this morning I was on for like an hour and a half and a single queue didn't pop, so that's not great. I kind of wish with these PTSs they did them more like they did the betas with Galactic Starfighter, and they may have done it with a PTS in Galactic Starfighter, or I don't remember. But the way they did it was they just had very specific times that they opened it up, and that kind of concentrated the players and made sure that we can get queues popping for these things. And I wish they would do something like that in the PTS going forward. Though it would make my life a little bit more annoying, getting videos together and things like that. Maybe if they just made it a focus on a certain time period. You know, leave the PTS open, but say, from this time to this time, we're testing Galactic Starfighter. Everyone get on, do Galactic Starfighter. That's what you should be doing if you're on the PTS. And then another time, oh, we want to try out the new Flashpoint, so everyone get on at this time and start running the Flashpoint, running it. I think that's a good way of going about things. I think players, as always, they need a little bit of coaxing, a little bit of hurting, if you want them to do what you want them to do. So if you just assist players to get into the PTS at certain times to do certain things, it would make things like trying out Starfighter a lot easier. So on top of the Starfighter changes, the other big new, I guess, gameplay change, or the new game mode, is the Kuat Drive Yards. And then this is a new flashpoint. It's a tactical flashpoint. And the tactical flashpoints mean they are role neutral. These are just like the Zerka and the 2 Zerka flashpoints that are role neutral. Those are tactical flashpoints also. They are on their own group finder queue now. And this one in particular goes from level 15 to 55. And there are 2 brackets. There's a 55 version and there's a 15 to 54 version. They do the same flashpoint, but I guess they don't want the 55s rolling up with the 15s. I don't really know why. I don't see a reason for it, but that's how it's broken down. So if you want to play on lobies, everyone has to be on a lobby, and if you want to play on your max level character, everyone has to be on a max level character. But let me tell you, the Kuat Drive Yards is an awesome flashpoint. I think this might be the best in the game. Now, if you want to go by story and say, like, the S-List is the best flashpoint in the game, or Black Talon, best flashpoint in the game, I can't argue with you there. The story of Kuat Drive Yards is not the best, but it plays like the best flashpoint in the game in my experience. It's very cool how they do it. The flashpoint is set up as 3 levels. You use an elevator to go down 3 levels. And each time you run the flashpoint, you go to 2 different levels, and then you fight a randomized boss at the end. And each level has a different mini-boss. Each level has a different objective. There's a jailbreak scenario that you go through. There's this, you have to assemble a ship scenario, which I thought was a pretty cool one. There is another one where you have to take down some anti-air turrets and take down some shields. Those are the 3 I've seen. I don't know if there are any more. I hope there are more, and I will be trying it out. If you want to check out my videos, I've done 2 videos showcasing the 3 scenarios that I've just talked about. And I will be doing 2 more videos on the Imperial side. I've done the Republic side with the intro quest, and there's also a really cool conversation that you have with certain companions that you can't have a conversation with right now, that I'm really glad that they brought in, because it does add a little bit more life to Galactic Starfighter. But I will be trying out the Imp side with the intro and all that good stuff. All the frills will be up coming soon. Hopefully by the time you listen to this, it'll already be up. So you'll have 4 videos to look at and hopefully be able to see all the different scenarios you can go into. And then at the end, I've only done 1 boss so far, but I've heard there's at least 2. So the end boss also is a little randomized. And the end boss in the Lobby version, I've done a max level and a Lobby version. The end boss with Lobies was actually really fun. You had to actually do some mechanics, work together. It wasn't too punishing, but you did have to actually do the mechanics, kill ads that spawned. There was lots of moving parts, and I thought it was a perfect boss for a Flashpoint, and especially an end boss to a Flashpoint. I really like that one, and I'm glad they've done well with their Flashpoint encounter design. I think they've done a really good job, for the most part, making interesting encounters for their Flashpoints. I often wonder how many people actually do Flashpoints, though. This is something I guess you could tell me, like, what your experience is, but I haven't done a Flashpoint in live since Lost Island at 50, when Lost Island was Lost Island. That's the last Flashpoint I've done. I know a lot of people that never do Flashpoints. I don't know. Just I'd like to hear from you. Do you do Flashpoints? Why do you do Flashpoints? Because one of the big things for me is Flashpoints. This is another reason why commendations are so ridiculous to begin with, is that you can just go into an operation, steamroll through a story mode, Terror from Beyond, get some ultimate comms in maybe an hour, in like twice the time it takes to do a Flashpoint, because a Flashpoint still takes like a half hour, even if it's an easy one. So in an hour, you can steamroll through a Terror from Beyond or a Scum and Villainy in story mode, get some ultimate comms, and you're pretty much at the same place at the end. You get the same gear. This is why I think commendations are silly and need to be reformed and redone in some fashion. I've spoken at length about that, and maybe I'll do another one coming soon when we find out when the new Nightmare Mode operations are coming. Are they coming? Question mark? Who knows? There's a lot of questions, a lot of answers in this patch. Who knows when we'll be seeing new war zones? Who knows when we'll be seeing that Hutball map that we've been teased at for a while? When is that coming? 2.7? That seems a long time from now. Same thing with Nightmare Modes and a new operation. I personally would prefer a new hard mode operation to getting a Nightmare Mode operation right now. I think the Nightmare Modes of the Dread Ops could wait a little while, and we can see those later on. But none of that is in this patch 2.6, which is kind of a little off-putting. But like I said, that's a good Flashpoint, and if you like Flashpoints, I really want to hear from you. I want to hear from people who like Flashpoints. Why do you like them? What do you do? When do you do them? Like, do you like them that they're shorter, they're quicker, require less people, that they're easier, require less coordination? So, yeah, let me know. And finally, this patch brings a slew of class changes, some of which I discussed last week, but I want to touch on 2 very important ones, and one very close to my heart, which is the changes to the Scoundrel Operative DPS, specifically Concealment, and some lethality, and the changes to Orbital / Flyby. Now, I'll start with the Operative Scoundrel. A lot of people talked a lot when they released these changes about how they weren't enough, about how they're too much, yada yada yada. But now people have actually tried it out on the PTS, and it seems like the Concealment Operatives and the, I forget what the Scoundrel version of Scrapper, But it does seem like the concealment operatives and scrapper DPS have inched their way into viability. Parses of players that I've seen on the PTS seem to range, somewhere in the 3.5Ks. Like that's a solid number. I mean, it's not the best, but it's definitely viable. You can definitely do operations and definitely do PvP with that sort of DPS, and I think they've definitely helped out the concealment operatives. So if you have been one of the downtrodden concealment scrapper operatives trying to do DPS, well, this patch should hopefully improve your gameplay and get you back into viability, because a lot of the time it's perception is reality. This is one of my big my cliches that I like to talk about. Perception is reality. The reality is all of the content in the game right now can be cleared by all the classes doing all the roles. But the perception is certain classes are just straight better, and in a lot of cases it is the reality as well, that certain classes are just outclassed by other classes. And what you need to do is not only improve the reality, is you need to improve the perception. Even more than the reality. Like I said, the reality is classes of all types, shapes, and sizes could do the content in the game right now. But the perception is certain classes cannot do it. So you have to get over that perception. And one of the things you can do, and one of the big things that I think this patch will do, is it makes players think concealment and scrapper are viable again. There will be raid leaders out there who once again think that concealment and scrappers will be able to play. There will be rank groups that will try out concealment operatives and scoundrels again to see how they can go with their PvP team, or how they fit in with the PvP team now. And sometimes that's all it takes. Maybe they'll be able to find more better players, ones that were better as a player but in a worse class, quote unquote. Maybe those players can overtake some players who are in the better classes. And that's what you really need to do, because that's a lot of how MMOs work. There's the perception and the reality. And sometimes the perception lags far behind the reality, and sometimes vice versa. Sometimes the perception is a lot worse than the reality. And I'll give you another example of that. When I logged in, was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday. The day after the patch notes dropped, the first day of the PTS, and a guildie was talking to me, and they were talking about how they were thinking about switching my gunslinger to a tanker. We've been talking about switching me to a tank and running with someone else as DPS. But we were discussing which class we would prefer, and the options on the table were a scoundrel and a sniper. And they were acting as if the sniper was the worst class in the world now that the orbital flyby nerf happened. And this is an overriding sentiment on the general populace, that somehow this nerf to orbital slash flyby is gonna destroy the sniper gunslinger DPS for some reason, which just isn't the case. I know from personal experience running parses on the PTS that gunslinger sniper DPS will be just fine in 2.6, so I'm not worried about that. We will be fine. We will adapt. It's sad to see my favorite ability in the game nerfed, flyby, but it's something that needed to happen. It is ridiculous to have the best AoE spell in the game also be the best single target spell in the game. And honestly, flyby is kind of finicky and annoying to work with. Sometimes you have to throw it down, and then the tank has to move, and all of a sudden you've lost all that time, all that energy. It is a big energy sink in your rotation, so it's going to make the skill cap a little bit lower, and it's going to make playing the class a little bit easier. Is that a great thing? I don't know. That's up for you to decide, but honestly, this nerf to the flyby and orbital is not as bad as people are saying. I've seen people on the forums say, well, I'm going to quit the game because of this nerf to orbital, you need to revert it, or I'm going to quit and unsub, and whatever, dude. If you're going to quit the game because of one single change to one single ability, well, just leave the game already. You obviously aren't having fun, and you're just looking for excuses, so that's not the biggest deal. It's sad, and rest in peace, flyby. You definitely will be out of the single target rotation, but flyby is still a cool ability. It's very cool, flavorful, and I'll still be using it on Trash Pack. Overall, the patch 2.6 looks to be an interesting one. I can't wait to see it all go live in February, and then hopefully we get a quick turnaround in 2.7. or even some information on 2.7. We are getting a lot of information out of BioWare this week, so hopefully that trend continues. We have a new community matter, Tate it's Watson, Tate Watson, yes. So we have another community member, and usually whenever we've gotten a new community member, we've kind of seen an increase in the number of goalposts for a little while, and hopefully that sticks this time. Because, more information is better for me and you. You want information, I want to be able to talk about information, so let's get those goalposts rolling, keep them coming. So that'll do it for my discussion of patch 2.6, because I want to talk about the future. Because I've seen some posts on the forums from people who say that they know the new race that's going to be unlocked is the Voss, because they have a special psychic ability, and well, we'll be looking at my psychic ability after the break. So in lieu of a wall of crazy topic this week, I decided to ask my Twitter followers to go into their crystal ball and take a look and predict what they see for the coming year of SWTOR, just kind of in response to last week when I discussed my resolutions for SWTOR, and I want you to come up with what you think we'll see in the coming year. So I'm just going to run through a couple of them, go through my Twitter. If you don't get mentioned and you said one, I'm sorry. I'm just picking out random ones here. So we're going to start here with Justin Sanudo at jsanudo. He says, PvP Warzone incorporating both land and sky PvP. Enemy tries to bombard your building, ground tries to keep ground shields up. And this is something that I've talked about in past shows, so this would be really cool if we got. I think that there's a definite opportunity to intertwine the space PvP with the ground PvP in some interesting way like this, in some asymmetric form where players are doing different things to try and accomplish different goals. So I really think that this is something that was definitely far flung into the future. Maybe by the end of the year we can hope to see this. But thanks for your prediction, Justin. Next up, Seth at Seth Eldar. He says, all said before, but I'd say all war zones open to free-to-play, including ranked, 8-man ranked, reinstated, PvE GSF, including a 5-level expansion in December. So let's go through those things. There's a lot there. Warzone's open to free-to-players, including ranked. I think this should be coming, and I hope this comes within a patch or two. I hope this is definitely something we see really soon. This is important to increase and help bolster the health of the PvP community. We need to get these free-to-players queuing for ranked, they're already queuing for GSF. Let them queue for ranked, whatever. Doesn't matter. Just get them in there. It helps everyone. That's a good for everyone type deal. 8-man ranked reinstated. This is something I don't think we'll see, sadly, but I know a lot of people want to see it back. So that's your prediction, and I just don't see that one coming. PvE GSF. That's something that I think, as you say, plus a 5-level expansion, I think that would be something that we can look forward to as an expansion type deal, something that they can add to an expansion to really make it feel different from just a regular patch or regular game update. I think December is a decent target date. We're getting our first expansion. They're considering this an expansion, Galactic Starfighter. And I guess patch 2.6 is the expansion. I guess. Why they wouldn't go to 3.0 if it's an expansion is beyond me. But it is patch 2.6, and to say give them a little less than a year is probably pushing it a little bit. I'd say early next year would be the time I would expect an expansion to come out. And the 5-level expansion, I think that's what we'll see going forward, is just 5-level expansions. It's just easier, simple number, bring us up to a nice even number, and then let us sit there for a while. At the Pummeler says, sadly to say, the next playable race will be Voss. Clipping issues will be too much work to allow anything more exotic. That's something that this Voss idea came up in a few different places, including a ridiculous post that claims some combination of clairvoyance, informants, and just being smarter than everyone else. It claims that the Voss will be the next playable race, and for so many reasons, I just don't see this happening. It just doesn't make sense. The voice modulation is just the tip of the iceberg on the reasons why I don't think we'll see Voss. The thing that I do like is this new idea that Bothans may be the new playable race, because the like the main protagonist in the Kuat Drive Yards Flashpoint, he is the first Bothan to ever be in the game, and I think that's something that could reasonably be done. It's kind of similar to Cathar. You got dog people and cat people living together. You could be raining Bothans and Cathars all over SWTOR. And I just feel like that there's not that much. They're humanoid. We can get them in there. They speak basic. I think that fits all the signs. And the fact that this Bothan comes out of nowhere and jumps in the game, I think that definitely can be taken to mean something. So that's what I think, but you're entitled to your opinion, Pummeler, and you think that the Voss will be coming. At the Cosmic Engine 99, you may know him from his several different fan site relations. Says, capital ship assault for GSF. This is something I kind of talked about before. I definitely agree with you. Something different from a mundane game type that we see in pretty much every PvP game out there. All the shooters, all your flight sims, everything like that. All the mundane stuff, that's boring. I want to see something cool like capital ship assault. A new planet in summer or autumn. That I think is something that we can look forward to. I think we'll definitely see a new planet similar to Oricon, I think in scale, with a small little quest line leading into the new operations. And I think we can expect something like that every time they drop a new operation. Instead of just having a hangar on the fleet, you'll have to go somewhere. I think they're kind of leaning towards that kind of design rather than just have the boring old dropship with no story or context outside of the operation. 4 new flashpoints. If we include Kuat Drive Yards, that would lead to 3 more flashpoints. I think that's reasonable if you have 1 every quarter. It makes sense. And then 4 new operations, same deal, 1 every quarter. If we got an operation once every 3 months, I think people would be happy. Now you mix in, will the modes count as new operations? I don't necessarily think so, but I think they will count it as an operation. And I think we'll see 2 new modes for operations combined with 2 new operations. So we get 2 totally new operations, and then we get 2 new nightmare modes on top of the existing operations. And I think that will be what we can expect. New races. I think that we might see a new race coming in patch 2.7, and then we might see a new race by the end of the year, because I think races turned out to be a big boon for them. So it's not something easy, but I think it's something that does make a lot of money. So I think they'll be happy to pump out new races at a little bit of a faster clip now. So that's all Cosmic Engine has to say, and he puts away his crystal ball. So I definitely agree with a lot of things that he says there. I think that we can expect a lot of those things. The sad thing is there is no talk of PvP there, player versus player. No talk about new arenas, no talk about returning 8v8. So I really don't know the direction that they'll be heading with PvP. Will they continue to support arenas? I mean, will they really start supporting arenas? Will they show us what we're going to get? I'm really interested to see what kind of rewards they're going to give at the end of the season. They haven't said anything, and it's coming soon. Patch 2.7, where they said they were going to end the first season, it's coming before you know it, and we haven't heard a thing. That's a little scary and a little mind-boggling there. We still haven't heard a thing. It's been several months since the release of 4v4 Ranked, and we still have not heard a single thing. Let's think about that for a second. Twitter follower who? Do I have to say that who? Or who question mark? Or whatever. At DaveO_NewWaveO. And he says, I believe the game will suffer a huge exodus, several strong competitors coming out soon. Not enough being done to retain players. Well, this is a definite possibility. I honestly don't see it. I've heard this whole song and dance before, oh, Final Fantasy's coming out. That's going to kill all the other smaller MMOs. This is kind of like the WoW killer mentality, but it's on a different scale and has a little bit of different mechanics. While the WoW killer thing is based on players not want to sub anymore, the whole SWTOR killing thing is going to have to be for players that just don't want to spend any time in the game anymore. And I just don't see that happening. I think players that are still in the game now are enjoying the game and are in for a long haul, and aren't necessarily ones that are going to jump ship and never come back. Because that's the player that that BioWare really cares about. The player that still, dabbles, still plays once in a while free to play, they'll still spend some cartel coins here and there. I think those players, BioWare is fine having. You could go play your Elder MMOs, that's fine. I think a big deal is that those new MMOs are subscription-based. I believe WildStar is. I know TSO is. TSO. Everyone says TSO, but it's really like TSO. Like queso. Like the stuff you get at Moe's. That's really good. Anyway, sorry. Got sidetracked by food there. The other games are sub-based, and I think that while it is pertinent to say that most players probably only have one sub-based MMO, I think it's been shown that a lot of players do dabble in several different MMOs. And that's fine, and that's the strength of the free-to-play model. So I really don't see the competitors really causing a mass exodus from the game. Also, having played some of the competitors, I honestly don't know if I'm allowed to talk about which one it is, but let's just say it's not WildStar. I wasn't super impressed by it. Like, it is a very different experience, but I'm gonna go check and see if I can talk about it before going into it. But it's different from SWTOR, and I think different kinds of players will enjoy those two games. I think WildStar is a little bit more similar and maybe a little bit more of a direct competitor, but I also think that the free-to-play model is a key component of keeping players in the game and not causing a mass exodus, as you say. And this week's Wall of Crazy topic, I said in lieu of the Wall of Crazy topic before, but this was the one I was going to focus on as my Wall of Crazy topic, is from GamerLady at gamer_lady. And she says, it could be a he, but she says, I think we'll see the story progress with the Empire striking back to regain the upper hand and more GSF maps. Yep, I agree that we will see more GSF maps, but I definitely think that the story could use a little bit more of the Empire winning. I think a lot of the story so far has focused on the Empire making strides and the Republic fighting back. And I do think Makeb was a little bit more, but the stories were so disjointed that it was really hard to tell. I think that it is time for the Empire to score a decisive victory somewhere and really put the Republic back on its heels. I think that would be, it makes for some interesting story. It kind of puts the factions in a place they haven't really been before. Let's have the Empire come back and strike a decisive victory somewhere, and let's see something cool. Like, what if, I know a lot of people have talked about wanting a Kashyyyk expansion. What if we saw Kashyyyk ruined by the Empire? What if it was just decimated? It was just bombarded from all sides. The Empire comes back and just lays ruin to Kashyyyk. And the Republic story is to come in and save whatever refugees that they can. But they just can't save everyone. And the planet is put in significant turmoil, and that's the setting of a Kashyyyk expansion. Now that's something that I would really like to see. Kashyyyk is cool, and I like to see all the big trees and all the Wookiees living in their treetop villages, but I think it would be really cool to see a classic planet in a way that we haven't seen before. And this is something that I think may be possible now that the whole Lucas and Disney stuff, and they're taking a little bit of a step back from controlling the lore. I think it would be really cool to see a classic planet in a non-classic setting. So that's what I think. Those are your predictions. Thank you so much for giving me your predictions. I appreciate all your feedback from the show. So that will do it for today's episode, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. I have a lot of stuff to do in this outro. So without any further ado, let me start with the charity event. This was brought to my attention by Lori M on Twitter, so thank you very much for bringing this to my attention. This is one of those cool things that I think really helps the gaming community as a whole and really helps galvanize them. And that is the Games for Soldiers charity drive, which is being hosted by Mog Nation, which is a big multi-gaming guilds group. One of those. You've probably heard of one of those before. And the whole point of this is you donate old games or new games or any kind of games that you have to this charity, and they send them over to soldiers overseas. And this is something, I love things like this because it really shows that gaming can be more than Grand Theft Auto and killing hookers in the streets. Gaming can really help people. Gaming can be a great pastime and a great way to help treat all sorts of things from just boredom to PTSD. The gaming is just such a powerful medium, and it's charities like this that really helps elevate something that I really love. So if you have any old games lying around, you want to donate them. If you have any new games, they're also accepting money, I believe. I will link to the website in the show notes. This is a special connection to SWTOR because the whole Games for Soldiers charity was created by the voice actress Catherine Tabor. You may know her as Vet. She is the voice of Vet. She does several other voices in video games and TV shows, so this is her charity. It's a really cool cause and something, it's just an awesome thing that I really hope that if you have anything that you can donate, as always, donations are from the kindness of your heart. Don't donate anything you can't, but if you have something old sitting around, you never use it, you have an old copy of Myst, whatever, something like that. There's an address you can send it to, or you can donate money, so just go check it out. The website is gamesforsoldiers.com, but like I said, I'll link to it in the show notes, so hopefully you can help out with that. Moving on. Last week I had a TonFon code giveaway, and I said I'd pick the winner this week. The winner is Chaz Lobo at Strong Shocker on Twitter, so I will send you a DM. Check your messages on Twitter, and you should have your TonFon code. Congratulations, Chaz Lobo. Also this week, the return of SWTOR Reforged. This is an old podcast that is coming back. These guys were cool. This means we have another SWTOR podcast to listen to. That's insane. Of all the SWTOR podcasts I listen to, so let's see if I can list them off by memory here. So we got the Utinicast, we have the Torocast, we have the Escape Podcast, we have the Enmity Podcast, we have a new podcast which is done by a guildie of mine, Hochi, which focuses on operations bosses. So each podcast will deal with an individual boss that you can listen to, and it'll give you tips and tricks for that. So that's another new podcast. So that's like 8 podcasts right there. Am I forgetting any? I'm going to feel really bad if I forget any. So I'm going to look it up right now. And by the power vested in me, I mean by the fact that I can pause this and look it up while you're not listening, means that this is going to seem really fast, even though I'm still stalling here. So we got, how could I forget Corellian Run? Of course, Corellian Run Radio, where I got my start. That's what the CRR is in my email. We got the ASF podcast. Not a SWTOR podcast, but this is Alan Shot First. You remember him? He was an old podcaster for SWTOR. Now he has more of a general newsy kind of gaming fun podcast, so check that out. And I think, and the Tor Wars podcast, whatever. Also, they've been a little bit less Tor these days, more Star Wars related, but still on Tor, so I'm going to keep them in there. All these guys, check them out. If you don't, I don't know why you're not listening to them and listening to me. So, podcasts out there, listen, awesome. That's more a solid podcast than I remember there being for WoW. So, that just goes to tell you something. Maybe you can come up with 10 awesome WoW podcasts that you listen to, but from my searching, I only ever found like 2 WoW podcasts that I enjoyed listening to. And with that, that'll do it for the show. I should interrupt before I stop rambling. As always, if you'd like to contact me, you can send your questions, comments, and concerns to gadokteague.crr, that's Corellian Run, where I got my start, at gmail.com, or tweet them to @gteague on Twitter. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes to get your weekly podcast updates. If you're new to the game or thinking of resubscribing, I provided my refer a friend link in the show notes. So if you'd like a little added incentive to come back, feel free to use it. You can also check out my website, Gadok Gaming, where I do all of my videos, my podcasts, and all sorts of stuff on the website. So go check that out. And I have a TonFon code giveaway, so I want to come up with another TonFon challenge. This time on Twitter. You need to tell me your favorite, let's go with, tell me what your favorite flashpoint is in the game right now. So Kuat Drive Yard's coming, that's not counting. Of all the other flashpoints in the game, just tell me @gteague with the hashtag TonFon what's your favorite flashpoint, and you'll be entered to win a TonFon code. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Unnamed SWTOR Podcast. This is JD, signing off.